How can you get a permit to hike up Half Dome if you're through hiking the PCT? Which Enlightened equipment quilt do I recommend, the Enigma or the Revelation? And are there any foreign trails that are on my bucket list? All that and more in this week's Q&A. Welcome back, hikers, to another week's Q&A here. We've got a jam-packed agenda and a lot of awesome questions this week for you. To get started, though, we are going to roll into a comment that was left by Miss Bigfoot. The next beer you should try, my fave, Bud Light with olives. Well, you know, seeing as how I absolutely despise olives, it's like the one thing that I probably hate the most, and I hate Bud Light. Let's see what happens when I mix the two together. So I got my Devil's Brewery little mug here, and what we're going to do is we're going to throw some green olives in here. This is actually a Minnesota thing. This is supposed to make your beer a lot more saltier. So we're going to pour the Bud Light into my mug here. We got a tall boy here. Probably not going to drink this whole thing for the Q&A. Let's give this thing a try and let's see how it is. I've actually never ever tried this before. Like I said, because I really don't like Bud Light and I absolutely hate olives. Cheers. It's actually not too bad. I think it actually tastes a little bit better. Now, if you want one of your questions featured in next week's Q&A video, go down to the comment box and enter whatever question that you may have, and I'll do my best to get through as many of them as possible next week. Well, let's get into the week's first question. I'm currently debating getting a DeLorme InReach versus the new Garmin ones. The DeLorme can be purchased for almost 50% less these days, but I'm worried about the Garmin not supporting it for as long as the Garmin branded ones. Choices. Cameron, to answer your question, I wouldn't be super concerned about Garmin not supporting the DeLorme InReach Explorer, the older model. I still have the older model. I haven't had any issues with any support from Garmin at all, and I wouldn't foresee that Garmin would drop that. Now, I've not spoken to Garmin, so I can't say for sure. It is a heck of a deal going with the regular DeLorme compared to the brand new ones. Now, the brand new ones, you're going to have some extra bells and whistles, and the actual display on the GPS is more modern. So if that's really, really important to you, then go with that one. But I would personally save a bunch of money and just go with the older model. I've been using it for about 3 years now and I still love it. Hey Bigfoot, hiking the PCT this year and I'd like to hike Summit Half Dome. Any info on how and when to get a permit would be great. For those of you that are going to be hiking northbound or southbound on the PCT through hike, your PCT permit does not give you rights to be able to hike up Half Dome. The PCT runs along the JMT starting right around Tuolumne Meadows and goes all the way to the split where you would go up to Mount Whitney. If you wanted to go and do Half Dome, first thing to know, it's about 15 miles off of the PCT, which means you're going 30 miles if you go back and forth, or what most people would do is hike all the way down into Yosemite Valley and they'll take one of the shuttles back up to Tuolumne, which is what I would recommend. So you have two different options as to how you can obtain a permit to be able to do your Half Dome. The first way is to do it like everyone else and to enter the lottery. They give away 50 permits every single day to be able to hike up Half Dome. The only problem with that is not only do you have to do it 24 weeks in advance, but you're going to be able to have to stick to the schedule, because if you do get awarded a permit to be able to do Half Dome, you have to hit it on that window on that day to be able to do Half Dome. Now your second option, and really your only practical option, is to get one of the 25 permits, walk-up permits, that they give at the wilderness permit stations between Little Yosemite Valley and Tuolumne Meadows. Now this is a first come first serve, so you're going to have to get there really early in the morning and get there enough time before the permit station opens, which is 8 o'clock a.m. I believe, but be able to get there so that you can be one of the folks to be able to get your permit for Half Dome. Now I said they give 25 permits out. It is for the following day. So if you come up there on a Monday and you get in line and you're awarded a Half Dome permit, you're not going to be able to go up Half Dome until Tuesday. Now what I would recommend is that you get an overnight permit to be able to hike up Half Dome. The plan would be this: you get your Half Dome permit, you're able to go up Half Dome. That day, hike all the way down to Little Yosemite Valley. That's where you'd want to stay. You can put all of your stuff there, set up camp. The following day, which is the day for your Half Dome permit, you can go hike up Half Dome, keep all of your stuff that you don't need at Little Yosemite Valley, and then hike back down to Little Yosemite Valley, which, by the way, is probably about 1.5 miles or something like that. But you hike back down to Little Yosemite Valley, grab the rest of your stuff, and then hike down to Yosemite Valley, which is about 4 miles from Little Yosemite Valley. This next question is in reference to the GMT. What window of dates should I apply for earliest to latest? I wouldn't consider myself a mountain climber, so I don't want to end up on Mount Whitney in a blizzard. What I would consider earliest, because you don't know how much snowfall is going to happen during that winter season when you are applying for the permit most of the time. You have to apply for a permit 24 weeks in advance. I would recommend that the earliest, if you don't want to be hiking through a ton of snow on the passes, would be to try to get somewhere in the middle of July. If you can stay somewhere in the middle of July, most of everything should be open by then, and you're not going to have too many troubles with getting over the passes. Now, in terms of latest, if you go much past the middle of September, everything starts to shut down. Red's Meadow, VVR, Muir Trail Ranch. So it's really important that you understand that. Now, I hiked all the way till about the third week of September. VVR was still open, so was Red's Meadow, but MTR was completely closed. The only service that we're offering was just to pick up your resupply buckets. Now, in addition to that, the shuttles that are going to be able to get you into Yosemite and out of Lone Pine are going to be more sporadic. So keep that in mind. If that's not really that big of an issue for you, you can go all the way till sometime at the end of September into the first week of October, and you'll probably be fine. I need to buy a trekking pole, and the weight is not an issue for me. I'm 6 foot tall. First, carbon fiber or aluminum. Second, which brand is good? Nock, Black Diamond, or Cascade Mountain Tech. And I need something durable because I do lots of mountain hiking. You came to the right guy to ask this question because I'm very familiar with trekking poles and which ones I would recommend if you are looking for something durable. I actually just did a whole video about this. I'll link it above here if you haven't seen it yet. First, aluminum. I would not go with carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is going to break a lot easier than aluminum. Typically with carbon fiber, it's going to snap on you, whereas aluminum, if you put enough pressure on there, you might get some bending. There was many times during my AT thru hike where I bent parts of my trekking poles, and I was just able to kind of bend them back in place. But the aluminum poles are going to be tanks compared to a carbon fiber pole, in my opinion. Two of the big manufacturers out there that are probably making the more durable poles is going to be Lakey and Black Diamond. You're going to be able to also find parts on the trail for both of these. Lakey more than Black Diamond, though, from what I've seen. Now, I actually used this specific pole on the AT, and I beat the crap out of my trekking poles. This is the Black Diamond Trail Pro Shock trekking pole. This is something that's going to hold up very, very well. This lasted my entire AT thru hike. Black Diamond, I probably wouldn't recommend that you go with the Trail Pro Shock. You really don't need the Trail Pro Shock. I would just get the Trail Pro, unless for some reason the Trail Pro Shock is a little bit cheaper. There was one issue that I did have with the shocks. There was a couple days where my shock actually got stuck, and I actually had to kind of like manipulate it to pop it back in place. Now, I actually prefer cork handles compared to like EVA or like this Core Tech that Lakey has. I just feel that it's a lot more comfortable. It's going to be able to absorb the sweat a lot more. My new trekking pole that I'm going to be testing out there on the trail is called the Alpine FLZ trekking poles from Black Diamond. It's a Z pole just like this, but it's made by Black Diamond, which I actually prefer Black Diamond over any of the other poles for durability. And it's got cork handles, so it's kind of the best of all of the worlds. Long story short, I would go with Black Diamond and aluminum poles, and then depending on from there, what features that you want will dictate which pole that you should get. I have been on the fence about buying a Z-Pax 20-degree bag, but heard the foot boxes was a bit on the narrow side and sewn like an envelope, not like a box. More room for your feet. Your thoughts. Thanks. Well, it just so happens I actually have my Z-Pax sleeping bag here with me, so I can kind of show you how it compares to some of the other leading quilts out there that a lot of hikers prefer. Now, in my opinion, they might just be a tad bit narrow, but there actually is no difference in size from a Z-Pax to an Enlightened Equipment. I also have a Mountain Hardware sleeping bag. All of them have the same width foot box. So right here is my Z-Pax 40-degree down bag. I bought this and used this on my AT thru hike. And here is an Enlightened Equipment Revelation. So you kind of set them up side by side like this. When I actually put them together, they are actually identical in size. There is no difference in the actual size of the foot box. Now, I did go with a wider Z-Pax bag and a wider Enlightened Equipment quilt. I have to have a little more width because I do have broad shoulders, and I like having an extra little space. I do not like to be crammed up in a very small sleeping bag or quilt. Now, if you're thinking of pulling the trigger on a Z-Pack sleeping bag, they do have their classic bag like this, where basically it's going to zip down till about your calves. They also have your standard quilt where your entire toe box is going to be completely closed and the back of the quilt is open. You can use the straps if you want to close them. And then lastly, they do have the zip toe box, just like the Revelation. So you do have all kinds of different options with Z-Packs, but I would recommend going with the wider width. We got our featured question of the week. Enjoying the new Q&A style as an owner of both the EE, Enigma, and Revelation, how would you compare the two? Are there situations that you would recommend one over the other? Cheers. Well, I got both quilts right here. I got my 20-degree Revelation and my 50-degree Enigma. I used this on my FKT attempt of the Superior Hiking Trail last year, and I bought this for the JMT. Let's talk about the Enigma first. So the Enigma, first off and foremost, the biggest difference is it has a closed toe box. It's sewn shut, which is, if you can see, this whole part right here is my toe box, and then opens up right around your calf. What this is going to do is, number one, it's going to be lighter because it's minimizing the zipper. In addition to that, it's also going to stay a little bit warmer in your toe box. If your feet get really cold really easily, you probably want to go with an Enigma over the Revelation. With the Revelation, the toe box is not closed, it's not sewn shut, and at the very end of it, you will use actually shock cord that's attached to it to be able to close the toe box. But there is a little bit of air that could be able to seep right through there, or heat loss. The Enigma is really for the true minimalist. By cutting out that zipper and having a sewn closed toe box, you're actually able to eliminate about 1.2 ounces of weight. Now right here we got our Revelation. As you can see right here, we have our zipper, which is going to start somewhere right around the height of your calf. There's a button here that you would unbutton, and then you'll zip this where you can actually transform your Revelation into a blanket. Now here's the shock cord on the bottom, and this is the part where I was talking about where you could have heat escape through this. It is closed by a button as well, and I would open up the shock cord right here to be able to open up the entire length of my quilt. This is nice for a lot of folks because this really makes the quilt very versatile. You can use it as a blanket. A lot of folks out there are going to use their quilt and have this huddle around them while they're in camp at night, eating dinner, or in the morning when they're eating breakfast and they just want something over them to keep them heated, to keep them insulated before they start hiking. So you do have a lot of versatility. Plus, if you got warmer nights and you really don't need to be able to have this completely closed, you can open the thing up and just use it as a blanket, which makes it really nice. So you can kind of get away with having maybe a warmer sleeping bag, that 20 degree, 10 degree, depending on whatever your rating is. But when you're able to open it up like that and just use it as a blanket, you'll be able to use it for 3 seasons, and you probably don't have to send it back home and get a lighter quilt. That's again if you don't really care about carrying the extra weight for that. So that's really the key differences between the Revelation and the Enigma. It just really comes down to what your preference is. If you are a cold sleeper, especially if you get cold feet, you're probably going to want to go with the Enigma. Or if you want something more versatile, you probably want to go with the Revelation. Thank you so much for all of the content you provide us. Did you have any issue with bugs, ticks, mosquitoes on the JMT? Did you have to treat your gear and clothes with permethrin beforehand? My JMT through hike went from September 10th through the 22nd or 23rd. I had no issues with bugs, no mosquitoes, no ticks, no nothing. I did not treat anything, any of my gear with permethrin, just because I knew that I was going to have any issues with bugs during that time of year. Now, if you're going up into June or July and bleeding into August, you probably will experience more issues with mosquitoes and some bugs of that nature. I would recommend putting permethrin, but if you're going any time past maybe the middle of August, especially going into September, I don't think that it's necessary to apply permethrin. What do you think of the NCMST as a long distance trail? I've been section hiking it and it just doesn't seem like a good trail to through hike. Good video as always. The NCMST that they're referring to is the North Carolina Mountain to Sea Trail. I don't think it's a great trail to be able to through hike because half of the trail you're road walking. Only about half of it's completed. They do have plans of completing the entire trail, but After like the first few 100 miles, a lot of it's going to be a road walk the rest of the way. So it's not something that I would recommend through hiking. It really kind of depends on what your preference is. I don't enjoy road walking, so it's not something that I'd probably through hike until it actually gets finished. Are there any foreign trails that pique your interest? Absolutely. There's quite a few on my list. I'm actually doing one this summer, and I will tell you guys more about that after I get done with the Ozark Trail. Other trails that are on my list: I want to do the Inca Trail. I want to hike into Machu Picchu. That's probably on or near the top. I want to do the Camino in Spain. And one of the things that me and my brother have talked about, I really don't know if this is something he still wants to do, but we have always wanted to hike to Everest Base Camp. And lastly is Mount Kilimanjaro. That's something that's definitely on my to-do list, but time gets in the way, so we'll see what happens. But these are things that are just all up in the air right now that I could definitely see me doing down the road. I mean, down the trail, of course. Well, that wraps up our Q&A for this week. I'm going to finish this thing off. All of the olive juice is at the bottom. As I said earlier, I hate olives, so let's see what this tastes like. Disgusting. That was the worst part of the beer. Just a couple updates on the channel. If you bought one of my t-shirts, they're going to start shipping on the 26th of March. You should be able to get them by April 5th at latest. Now, sometime in April, I'm actually going to be doing another t-shirt, but all of the proceeds are going to go to ALDA, the Appalachian Long Distance Hikers Association. That is the nonprofit organization that I'm supporting this year, that I want to raise revenue for trail days. I'm going to be making a donation myself to them, but more on that as we get into April. And lastly is my Ozark Trail through hike that is going to be happening. I'm going to start on this on the 7th of April. I'll be doing a few videos before I actually get on the trail. I want to talk about some of the new gear that I'm going to be testing out, plus my entire gear list and how I'm planning and preparing for this thing. Now, I'm going to vlog this through hike just like everything else, but if you want to be able to follow me a little more intimately and get my GPS tracking information and be able to get live updates, live feeds, live videos from the trail, become a member of my Patreon today. All the money that I make on Patreon goes right back into the channel. It's how I can really afford to be able to continue to do these through hikes, do this channel, upgrade all of my equipment, and give back to the community. I'll link above here how you can become a member today. Stay tuned for more sightings, and remember to always follow Bigfoot.